Well, you see, it's those white celebrities. Well, this year we're in, so they all want to jump on the bandwagon.
They're just to light the water and share the American dream.
Who said he wasn't smart?
January 12th, 1971. 9 p.m. CBS television. Millions of American families are sitting in their living rooms expecting another harmless sitcom. Maybe some laughs about nosy neighbors or burnt dinners. But what they get instead is a white man sitting in an armchair looking directly at the camera and saying things that were never supposed to be said on national television. Racist slurs, homophobic jokes, sexist rants, all delivered with a smile, a cigar, and a laugh track roaring in the background. The show is called All in the Family, and for the next 9 years, it will be the #1 program in America, winning over 20 Emmys, launching 5 spin-off shows, and becoming one of the most influential pieces of television ever created. But here's the question nobody wanted to ask then, and many still avoid today. Was All in the Family a brilliant satire that exposed American racism? Or was it a dangerous experiment that gave bigots permission to laugh at their own hatred? Did Norman Lear, the creator, use comedy to fight prejudice? Or did he accidentally create a TV show where racists saw themselves as heroes and progressives saw themselves as winners, both watching the same jokes and hearing completely different messages? This is the story of a sitcom that changed television forever. A show that made America confront racism, sexism, homophobia, and war in their living rooms every Thursday night. A show so powerful it launched an entire universe of groundbreaking series, including The Jeffersons, one of the most important depictions of black success in TV history. But it's also the story of a dangerous gamble, because when you make people laugh at bigotry, you can never fully control who's laughing with you and who's laughing at you. Don't forget to hit follow, because what comes next will make you rethink every sitcom you've ever watched and question whether laughter can ever truly change minds, or if it just makes hatred more comfortable. The year is 1971. America is burning, not literally, but emotionally, politically, spiritually. The Vietnam War is tearing the country apart. Young people are protesting in the streets, burning draft cards, screaming that the government is sending them to die for nothing. Their parents, the World War II generation, are horrified. To them, these kids are traitors, cowards, ungrateful brats who don't understand sacrifice. The civil rights movement has won major legal victories: Brown versus Board of Education, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act. But the reality on the ground is still brutal. Segregation may be illegal, but neighborhoods are still divided. Schools are still separate. Jobs are still denied. And millions of white Americans are terrified that black people are taking over their country. The feminist movement is rising. Women are demanding equal pay, reproductive rights, freedom from being defined solely as wives and mothers. And conservative men are furious, convinced that feminism is destroying the American family. Then there's the sexual revolution. Young people are rejecting traditional marriage, experimenting with drugs, questioning religion, embracing gay rights. And older generations see this as the collapse of morality itself. This is the America that All in the Family walks into, a country split down the middle. Parents versus children, conservatives versus liberals, tradition versus change. And instead of pretending none of this exists, Norman Lear decides to put it all on television, in prime time, with a laugh track. Norman Lear is a television producer who believes comedy can be more than escapism. He believes it can be a mirror, a weapon, a classroom. He's inspired by a British sitcom called Till Death Us Do Part, which features a loud, bigoted, working-class man constantly clashing with his liberal son-in-law. Lear thinks this could work in America, but it needs to go further. It needs to be more honest, more brutal, more real. So he creates All in the Family, a show about the Bunker family. Archie Bunker, a white Catholic working-class dock worker living in Queens, New York. His wife Edith, sweet, naive, deeply religious, endlessly patient. Their daughter, Gloria, young, more liberal than her father, caught between two worlds. And her husband, Michael Stivich, a college student, Polish-American, atheist, anti-war, progressive, everything Archie hates. They all live together in a small house at 704 Hauser Street in Astoria, Queens. And every single episode is a war. Archie Bunker is not a subtle character. He is openly racist. He calls black people offensive names. He mocks Puerto Ricans, Jews, Italians, Poles, anyone who isn't exactly like him. He's sexist. He believes women belong in the kitchen, that feminism is destroying America, that men are naturally superior. He's homophobic. He uses homosexual as an insult, makes cruel jokes about gay people, and genuinely believes they're sinful and disgusting. He's a blind patriot. He thinks America is always right, that the Vietnam War is noble, that protesters are cowards. He twists the Bible to justify his hatred, claiming God made men superior to women, that segregation is natural, that anything different from his narrow worldview is a threat to civilization. And every single week, millions of Americans watch him say these things, on CBS, in prime time, with a laugh track. But here's where it gets complicated. Archie isn't presented as a monster. He's presented as a human being, frustrated, insecure, scared of a world that's changing too fast. He's not rich, he's not powerful. He works hard, pays his bills, loves his family, and genuinely believes he's a good man. Norman Lear's intention is clear. Make people laugh at Archie's ignorance, show how ridiculous his racism sounds, use Michael, the liberal son-in-law, to dismantle Archie's arguments episode after episode, prove that bigotry is based on fear and stupidity, not logic. And for many viewers, it works. They watch Archie spout his hatred, they hear Michael calmly explain why he's wrong, and they see Archie as a relic of a dying past, a joke, a cautionary tale. But for other viewers, something very different happens. They watch Archie and they see themselves. They hear him say the things they've always believed but were told they couldn't say out loud anymore. They hear him complain about black people, feminists, hippies, gays, and they nod along. They agree. They cheer. And when the laugh track roars, they don't think America is laughing at Archie. They think America is laughing with him. This is the problem researchers discovered almost immediately. Studies done in the 1970s found that people with prejudiced attitudes often identified with Archie Bunker. They saw him as a hero, a truth-teller, a man brave enough to say what everyone else was thinking. Meanwhile, liberal viewers saw the show as a brilliant critique of conservatism. They laughed at Archie because they thought he was pathetic. The same joke, the same episode, two completely opposite reactions. Norman Lear insisted the show was anti-racist, that it exposed bigotry by showing how stupid it sounded. But critics started asking, if racists are watching your show and feeling validated, does your intention even matter? If a bigot watches Archie call someone a slur and thinks, finally, someone on TV who gets it, have you fought racism or reinforced it? That question has never been fully answered, and it's still debated today. But regardless of the controversy, one thing is undeniable. All in the Family became the most popular show in America. For 5 consecutive years, from 1971 to 1976, it was the #1 program on television. Not just popular, dominant. It stayed in the top 10 for 7 of its 9 seasons, over 205 episodes. Nearly a decade of America watching the Bunker family fight about everything that mattered. And the awards poured in. More than 20 Emmys. It was the first sitcom in history where all 4 main actors, Carol O'Connor, Gene Stapleton, Sally Struthers, and Rob Reiner, won Emmy Awards for their performances. Critics called it one of the most important and innovative sitcoms ever made. They said it changed what was possible to show in a TV comedy and opened the door for working-class protagonists and racially diverse casts. It proved that audiences wanted more than escapism. They wanted TV that reflected real life, real anger, real division, real America. And then came the spin-offs. All in the Family didn't just dominate TV on its own. It created an entire universe. In 1972, Maude premiered, a spin-off focused on Edith's cousin, a loud, liberal, feminist woman who wasn't afraid to fight for abortion rights, challenge traditional marriage and speak her mind. Maude ran for 6 years and tackled issues even All in the Family didn't touch. Then, in 1975, came the Jeffersons. And this is where the story gets even more important. The Jeffersons were Archie Bunker's neighbors. George Jefferson, a black man who owned a chain of dry cleaning businesses and was moving up in the world. His wife, Louise, their son, Lionel. They appeared on All in the Family as the family Archie constantly mocked, insulted, and resented. But Norman Lear saw something bigger. He saw an opportunity to create a show centered on a successful black family. Not poor, not struggling, not victims, but wealthy, powerful, living in a luxury apartment in Manhattan. The Jeffersons became one of the longest-running sitcoms in TV history, airing for 11 seasons. And it was a direct response to critics who said that shows like Good Times only depicted black families in poverty. The Jeffersons showed black excellence, black wealth, black pride. And it all started because All in the Family dared to put a racist white man and a successful black family in the same universe and let them clash. The spin-offs didn't stop there. Archie Bunker's Place, a continuation where Archie runs a bar. Gloria, following Archie's daughter after her divorce. Good Times, a spin-off of Maude, about a black family in Chicago struggling with poverty. And even in 1994, 15 years after All in the Family ended, CBS tried one more time with 704 Hauser, a show about a new black family living in Archie's old house, flipping the original formula with liberal black parents and a conservative black son. It didn't last long, but it proved the house, the address, the legacy was still alive. All in the Family created the biggest expanded universe in sitcom history, and every single one of those shows dealt with race, class, gender, and politics in ways TV had never dared before. But behind the scenes, not everything was perfect. Sally Struthers, who played Gloria, later revealed in interviews that she felt undervalued and ignored by Norman Lear. She tried to leave the show after 5 seasons, but she lost in arbitration and had to stay. She described feeling like her voice didn't matter, that the show was about the men, Archie and Michael, and the women were just supporting players. Even Jean Stapleton, beloved as Edith, was often written as the naive, sweet housewife who existed to soften Archie's edges. And while the show challenged sexism on screen, some of the women in the cast felt it wasn't challenging sexism enough behind the camera. There were also debates among the writers about how far to push the jokes. Not everyone was comfortable with Archie's slurs, even in a satirical context. Some writers worried they were crossing lines that couldn't be uncrossed, but Norman Lear pushed forward, convinced that discomfort was the point, that if people weren't squirming, the show wasn't working. And then there's the biggest question of all, the one that still haunts All in the Family's legacy. Did it actually change anyone's mind? Did a single racist watch Archie Bunker get humiliated by his liberal son-in-law and think, you know what, maybe I'm wrong? Or did they just enjoy seeing someone on TV who talked like them, thought like them, and made them feel less alone in their bigotry? The research is mixed. Some studies suggest that exposure to Archie's ignorance, combined with Michael's rebuttals, did make some viewers more aware of their own prejudices. But other studies found that people with strong pre-existing biases didn't change at all. They just felt validated, comfortable, entertained. This is the paradox of satire. When you make fun of something, you assume the audience knows what you're making fun of and why. But if the audience doesn't share your values, they might miss the point entirely. They might think you're celebrating what you're actually mocking. All in the Family premiered during one of the most divided periods in American history. And today, over 50 years later, America is divided again, maybe even more than before. We still argue about racism, about immigration, about gender roles, about patriotism, about who belongs in this country and who doesn't. And when people look back at All in the Family, they see 2 different shows. Some see a brave, groundbreaking series that forced America to confront its ugliest truths, a show that used comedy as a weapon against hatred, a show that proved television could be more than entertainment. It could be education, activism, revolution. Others see a cautionary tale, a reminder that good intentions don't always lead to good outcomes, that making people laugh at bigotry can sometimes make bigotry more acceptable, that giving a racist character a platform, even to mock him, can backfire if the audience doesn't understand the joke. So what is the legacy of All in the Family? It's complicated. It's contradictory, it's both brilliant and dangerous. It opened doors that changed television forever. Without All in the Family, we wouldn't have the Jeffersons, Maude, Good Times, Roseanne, Blackish, or any of the socially conscious sitcoms that followed. It proved that working-class families, black families, feminist characters, and political debates could be the center of primetime TV. It won awards. It dominated ratings. It became a cultural phenomenon. But it also showed the limits of satire. It showed that a single piece of art can mean completely different things to different people, that you can't control how your message is received. That laughter is a powerful tool, but it's not a cure. It doesn't automatically change hearts or minds. Sometimes it just makes people feel comfortable in their hatred. Archie Bunker was supposed to be a joke, a relic, a symbol of everything America needed to leave behind. But to millions of people, he was a hero, a truth-teller, a man who said what they were thinking. And that duality, that tension, is what makes All in the Family one of the most important and most dangerous shows in television history. Norman Lear believed comedy could change the world. And maybe it did. Maybe the Jeffersons, born from All in the Family, showed millions of white Americans that black families could be successful, dignified, and powerful. Maybe Maude convinced some viewers that women deserved equality. Maybe Michael Stivick's arguments against the Vietnam War planted seeds of doubt in young minds. Or maybe All in the Family just held up a mirror to America and let people see what they wanted to see. Maybe racists saw a hero and felt less alone. Maybe progressives saw a villain and felt superior. Maybe nothing changed at all except the ratings. Here's the truth. All in the Family matters. It matters because it dared to talk about things TV shows weren't supposed to talk about. It matters because it launched careers, created opportunities, and proved that sitcoms could be more than fluff. It matters because it's still studied in classrooms, debated in essays, and referenced in conversations about race, media, and representation. But it also matters as a warning, a reminder that art is never neutral, that comedy is never just comedy, that when you put something into the world, you lose control of what it means. Norman Lear wanted to fight racism, but he gave racists a character they loved. He wanted to expose bigotry, but he made bigotry entertaining. He wanted to start conversations. And he did. But those conversations are still happening 50 years later, and we still don't agree on what the show actually meant. So when you think about All in the Family, don't just remember the laughs, the awards, the cultural impact. Remember the lesson, the uncomfortable, complicated, frustrating lesson, that good intentions aren't enough. That satire only works if everyone understands the joke, that giving a platform to hatred, even to mock it, is a gamble, and that sometimes the line between exposing prejudice and normalizing it is so thin it might not exist at all. Archie Bunker is dead. The show ended in 1979, but his voice is still here, in comment sections, in family arguments, in political rallies, in people who say, "I'm just telling it like it is," as if honesty justifies cruelty. And maybe that's the real legacy of All in the Family. Not that it changed America, but that it showed us America was never going to be easy to change. That laughter doesn't cure hatred. That representation doesn't guarantee understanding. That even the most well-meaning art can be twisted, misunderstood, weaponized. If this story made you think, if it challenged what you thought you knew about comedy, race, and television, don't stay silent. Like, share, and subscribe so we can keep asking the hard questions others are afraid to ask. Because the truth about All in the Family isn't that it was good or bad, progressive or harmful. The truth is that it was both. And maybe that's the most honest thing we can say about any piece of art that dares to hold up a mirror to a broken society. The mirror doesn't lie, but it also doesn't choose what you see in it. That part is on you. All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive conclusion. There is still so much more to explore. Stories of television, representation, and the complicated legacy of art that tries to change the world. Feel free to dive into some of our other recommended videos and continue the journey into the stories that shaped how we see ourselves.